Welcome to Something Special Designs by Tina Williams, where I create cottage, French country, shabby, and farmhouse decor, all with thrifted items. Sit back and enjoy today's video, and if you like it, please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I upload future videos. Hi everybody, this is Tina. Hope you're doing well. This is our giveaway that we had. This was going to be what I had in a couple videos ago. You could enter in my giveaway by mentioning rabbit, and that is the rabbit canvas I'm going to be giving away. And I had 32 comments, so I am going to go to my random number picker. And I'm going to pick one number between 1 and 32, where the random number picker is. And so let's see what we get. Okay, number 31. And I have a list, and I kept track of the comments as they came in. And number 31 is at Charmaine Hunt. So I will leave my email address in the description box. So just send me your address in my email and you'll get your prize. Okay, so this is project number 1. And these are just some round discs that I got off of Amazon. They're pretty lightweight. They're not very heavy. And I am going to be painting those, or basically going over those with some wax from Folk Art. It's antique wax, brown wax. And I'm adding a little water to it because I really want this to soak in. And I'm going to go over the whole thing, front and back, on both of them. And you can get these just about anywhere. You can get them at craft stores. You can get them, I think, even my dollar store never has anything. It's a terrible dollar store. But I think they have them there as well. So I'm just going to kind of rub it in. And I want to give this a dark wood stain and take advantage of the wood look on it. I don't want to just cover it up. So I'm just going to do front and back on both of these. And then we're going to let them dry. And that will be the first thing that we do with these. And this dries very quickly. Of course, you can make it as dark as you want. In fact, I think I go over this with some more brown wax later, but I kind of wanted to, you're putting it on raw wood, so it gets pretty dark. So now these are these feet, and what these actually are, I bought these off of Amazon as well. These are knobs for a dresser, and you could screw this in if you wanted to. I'm sure that a lot of people would do that. I didn't want to do that because the wood was so thin that I really don't think it would hold that well. So what I am going to do is I'm going to be gluing these on. But first I'm going to go ahead and go over them with the same brown wax and kind of wipe them down and just get that in there and just stain them to a darker brown stain. So we'll do that on all of them, and it will dry fairly quickly so we can move on to the next step. So, and go in there and I'm just using a wipe, the same wipe I used before. And now I'm taking some of that same mixture that I had, and I am taking some beads that I bought off of Amazon, and you really can just match up any beads that you have. But these are also wooden beads, and they come in different sizes. And I will link everything that I bought in the description box so that if you want to purchase them, you can. So now what I'm going to do that my wood is all dry is I just have some very lightweight wire, and I am going to string these beads. And it doesn't take nearly as long as you think it does. I know that's what people are thinking, but it doesn't take long at all, especially with the wire, because they go on there really quick. And I'm going to be just stringing enough beads to go around the outer rim or the outer part of this entire round disc. And I'm going to be leaving the wire on there, so you'll see why. I tried doing one of these without doing a wire and just gluing them on, and it was really hard to keep them in place, and they moved around, and I didn't think it would be as hard as it was. And I found that this to be a lot easier than trying to randomly just put them on the outer rim. But of course you can do it however you want. But I just found this to be easier. It was an extra step, but in the long run it kind of wasn't, because you just basically add these beads when they're all done in one long string, which was easier than actually putting them on individually. And anyway, that's my experience. So when you get all done, I'm going to be using some of my Gorilla construction adhesive and putting that down. And I'm also using hot glue with this. But I'm actually trying not to use a lot of hot glue, because hot glue can look kind of messy. And I'd prefer to have mainly the construction adhesive. But this doesn't dry instantly, and I need part of it to dry instantly so that I can put the beads down. And later in my next project, I end up putting less of my hot glue on, and mainly just tiny little spurts of it. So basically, I put my Gorilla Glue down and then some hot glue, and I'm just lining these up right at the edge. I'm kind of making it equal to the edge, and you kind of mess with a little bit. I probably could have used less hot glue, like just put a few dots here and there, but I didn't really use too much. But you can just go around. Now I think you could use hot glue on this as well, but I want this to be pretty sturdy, so I always like to use some sort. You could definitely use wood glue. You don't have to use the Gorilla construction adhesive, but you could have used tacky glue, white glue, whatever. I just had that handy, so I used it. And I know it's not perfectly round, but you won't really be able to tell. So now I'm just taking that construction adhesive and I'm putting it all around the edges. And I'm just putting a few dots of hot glue on with it, just to hold it down. And I'm going to be putting that on top of this tray, or the other beads. So I'm putting the construction adhesive to make sure that it gets attached to the other beads. And I know I'm putting a little more than I need to, but you will not see that when this is done, because that's going to be the inside of the tray. And I just go all the way around with it. And this construction adhesive doesn't dry instantly, so you've got a good, 5 minutes. And here I just put a little bit of glue. I don't put as much. And I'm just doing that to hold it together. But what you don't see after I do this, I just lay it down on top and I line it up. And so you're going to have those beads in between the two, and press it down. And I do later on, I go ahead and I put clamps on this when it dries. So I did put some clamps on it and let it dry for a little bit before I went to put the feet on. And now these are the feet that we had before. And as I said before, you could screw them in. You could possibly have screwed them in like to the bottom board and then put the top one on, and you would not have seen the screws. But in my experience, I've glued these on with my maximum strength Gorilla Glue, and then I've put a few drops of the Gorilla Super Glue so that it dries not instantly. It takes probably about I would say 5 or 10 seconds. And I do like that because it actually gives you a little room to move them around. And I do move this around. I'm only putting 3, but I want them evenly spaced and right at the edge. And I pull off any extra glue and I go and wipe it with a wipe also. So after I do that, I will let this dry for a good, I would say a couple hours. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking some Dixie Belle wax, and I'm going to be using 3 different kinds. I'm using the Best Staying Wax Grunge Gray, and I'll be using the Dixie Belle White, but I'm also using the same Folk Art Brown, and I'm going to be mixing my waxes on top of here because I want, I don't really know how to explain what I want, but I want multiple layers of color on there, but I still want you to be able to see the wood. So I put the wax on and then I wipe it off. And I also put the wax on the side. So you do have to have this pretty much dry to do this part. You don't want your beads moving around, or, you know, you want it to be pretty dry in order to do all the wiping and messing with the beads and wiping off the wax and all that. So I'm going to be wiping off the white, and I'm going to go back and forth with these different waxes until I get the look that I want. Now, of course, you could have left it at the point where it's just the wood and not done anything else to it. And here I'm just going around the side where all the beads are. And you definitely want to make sure that it is dry before you do this, because you'll push your beads in. But you can see it gives it a really kind of fun look to that. It also helps hide any imperfections that you may have had. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on there and go all the way around with it. You could have even left it the color that it was if you didn't even want to put the brown on, but I'm just trying to give it a kind of a, I don't know, a light look to it, but yet still have a wood look to it. So you'll see when it's done. So I'm putting the white wax on the bottom, and then I'm going to be wiping it off. So after I do that, I'm taking some of the brown wax and going back over it. And I'm doing it kind of in the same direction. And I'm not doing it all over. I'm just doing it in spurts. And then I'll go back in with the white. Then I'll go back in with the gray. And I do that back and forth quite a bit until I get the look that I want. And I also do that on the sides. So it has a I don't really know how to explain a look that I achieve when I'm done, but you'll see. I do the back, and here I'm using the gray. I just wanted this to have a more vintage, more interesting look than just the brown. And that takes, you know, different layers. And now I'm putting the brown on, and I had already put the white. And I'm going in one direction. So I do the sides and I do the legs as well. And I will get all of that done. And this is how it looks when it's done. I really love it. It took 2 pieces of very thin board, and it gave it a more substantial, interesting look, I think. So here's project number 2, and it's very similar to project number 1. These are smaller round circles that I had. And I am basically doing the same thing. I'm going to be using the same Folk Art Wax brown wax. And I'm going to be putting some in there with some water, mixing it up so I can basically stain these wood beads. And then I'm just going to put them on a tray so that they dry. And I actually do 2 different colors, but I only showed me doing 1. So I did a little extra because you know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to be doing the little round disc. I think those are supposed to be used kind of for maybe making, oh gosh, I can't even think what you call them. You know, things you put your drink on. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all know. Oh my. So anyway, I'm going to do another set of beads here. And these are just smaller. And basically I'm doing them just to make one of these look different. And also because I didn't think I had enough to do all 3. So paint each of the round discs and let those dry. The next thing I do that's part of this project is I have 3 glass candle holders, and I believe I got these at the thrift store, but you can get them just about anywhere. I'm sure I didn't pay much for them. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting these with a Dixie Belle, several different colors, and I'm going to go over this with a coffee bean and then chocolate. But first I'm doing the coffee bean. It's a very, very dark brown. And I had already gone over these with a Rust-Oleum clear as a base to a primer because they're glass. And I went over it twice, so it does have something to stick to on the glass, and it'll keep it from chipping later. And I go over, I even do the bottom. Whenever I make things, I guess I'm used to it because I used to sell crafts a lot. I don't always do it when I'm doing them for myself, but I do try to finish things off so that if somebody picks it up, it looks finished. So that's why I do the bottom and the backs and things like that. I don't always, but especially if I know I'm going to keep it for myself. So I do all 3 of these, and after I do that, I let those dry. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part after they're dry. And you see it looks almost black. It really does. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking my Dixie Belle chocolate. And there really honestly was no reason for me to do 2 different colors. But I actually thought I was going to do something different than what I decided to do. So that's what happens. So I got the chocolate, and I am going to be mixing it with some salt wash to give it texture because of what I'm going to be doing next. And I am going to put 2 coats on because I want a lot of texture, and I want to make sure it dries in between. So I'm going to put some salt wash in there, and then I'm going to put some paint. And the Dixie Belle paint's really thick, so sometimes I add water to it. But I want a lot of texture on this. I want it pretty heavily textured. I really don't want you to be able to tell when I'm done with this that it's glass. So I'm going to do that all over, and I don't care if it's 100% covered. I'm not too worried about it because I'm going to be doing another coat. I want to make sure the first coat dries, and it does dry really quick when you use a salt wash. So I'm going to be doing all 3 of those with that. What's really kind of funny is I bought this turntable, and I love having it. It works fantastic, but I forget that I have it. So I end up just I don't know. Just watch. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. I just forget I have it. But I do like it. I'll link that too if y'all are interested in that. But it does make it a lot easier to paint things if you remember you have it. So anyway, I do 2 coats on that. I let one dry and then I do another coat. So I don't show you that. So now I'm going to be doing the same thing that we did on the tray. Is I'm going to go ahead and do a long string, long enough to go all the way around my little disc. As you can see, it's painted. I didn't want to bore you guys with all that. It's going to give you the general idea of what I'm doing on these because it's long enough without having to watch me do every little thing. And this doesn't take as long as it looks, guys. They go really, really fast because it's super easy to do these on wire. I mean, you can do it on string or something if you want. There's nothing saying that you have to do it on wire. But I do think it's easier to work with, easier to glue down and everything if you have a lightweight wire. And they sell this lightweight. In fact, I may have even gotten this wire from the Dollar Tree. I'm not sure where, but I've had it forever. So it's very, very, I don't know what gauge it is, but it's very pretty thin wire. So anyway, I just go ahead and do that, and I do it for all 3 of my little disc things. So there's a total of 3 of them, and one of them has smaller beads, but I do that for all of them so that I can go ahead and glue them on just like I did with the tray. So after I do that, I go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing. Pretty much it's the same process as I did with the tray. I'm just doing it with smaller, everything on a smaller scale. So it's really just a matter of using the Gorilla Glue, and then I try not to use very much hot glue because it tends to look messy, I think, and you have little strings all over, and I definitely am trying not to do too much of that, but you do need a little bit to kind of keep things in place. And when you get to the end there with the wire, you have to kind of cut it short and then fit it in there, and you will have to space them a little bit to where you have it, it looks even when you're done. It doesn't have to be perfectly even because honestly nobody's going to be able to tell. And then all you really do is you put your glue on top, just on the top piece, just like we did with the tray, and go all the way around it. And again, I'm using the Gorilla Glue. You could use any wood glue, would work too, as long as it dries clear. And I do clamp these. I don't show you that, but I just have some little clamps that I bought from the Dollar Tree, and I put those on there and let them dry with that. I think it was about an hour before I started adding more stuff to it and doing more things to it so I could work with it. But as you can see, I'm trying not to use too much glue. And then I put it on top, and you can still kind of maneuver the little beads around after you get them in there to get them all straight. And I do that, and then I do kind of put a clamp on all of these when they're done, and that gets them all even. And so I'm doing all 3 of them exactly the same. The one with the smaller beads works pretty much the same way. So I clamp those and let those dry. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking my little candle holders that are completely dry and they've had 2 coats of the paint with the salt wash, and I'm going ahead and I'm putting a clear coat, Dixie Belle clear coat on it, because I have done this before, and I'm going to be putting some metal, Modern Masters metal copper on there. And I put the clear coat on and let it dry because I found that I was reactivating the chalk paint with the copper, and it would mix sometimes. So I put the clear coat on before I put the copper. And now all I'm doing is I'm putting the copper on. And I'm going to try something because someone asked me this. And part of the reason I'm doing this is someone asked me when I did some tins recently, can you do other things other than metal? And yeah, I'm doing glass right now. But it's not going to look like glass when we're done. And then another person asked me, would it work? You're supposed to put 1 coat on and let it dry and then put another coat. Well, I put the other coats of the other paint on and the salt wash. So I'm actually going to put just 1 coat of this Modern Masters metal, and this is the copper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the activator on there, and I have 2 different ones. I have the green and the blue, and I have them in separate little bottles, and I'm just spraying them on there. And this is only with 1 coat. Now you have to do it while it's wet. So then I'm going to let that dry. And it starts to oxidize, I would say, within 30 minutes. And within an hour or 2, it'll be, pretty good. So now I'm going to do basically the same thing to the other ones. And I'm pouring this out into the cap to do it because I don't want to keep putting my brush back in and then contaminate the whole thing. And especially, you don't want to get any of your activator in your bottle. You really should put it in like a separate container. And I'm even doing the bottom of this, guys, because I want, as I said, I want it to look good all over. So I will do the whole thing. And I'm going to go ahead and spray this. I'm using both. I like to use both on the copper. It just, I don't know, it mixes and it makes for different colors of blue and green. It's not all one. But anyway, I'm going to be doing that. And again, I'm only adding 1 coat, but I am spraying it on there while it's wet. So that's kind of important. And I'm kind of picking it up because I don't want it to drip anywhere. And this stuff is really fun to play with. It really is. So I have not tried the Dixie Belle. I do have, I don't remember which one I have of theirs. I will have to try it. I've tried the, I think it's just the metal looking one. It's not the gold or the bronze because I have those in the Modern Masters. So we'll have to see. I'll try the other ones, but this works really well. They're pretty similar in price. I will link this. I got it on Amazon. And you buy the little spray separate. Now, they do have a primer you're supposed to put down, but I've never used it. So, and my stuff seems to work fine. I think it's to keep your metal from rusting all the way through. But I always prime my whatever I'm painting with something else anyway. Usually has a couple it has a primer and then it has something else on it. So I've never really seen a need to do that. So I'll spray that one and let it sit. So now I'm letting my pieces oxidize. I am back to my 3 little discs. These are just going to be little risers. So I'm going to do the same thing to them that I did with the tray. I'm going to be doing, the Dixie Belle white And then it's not really gray, it's called grunge gray. And then I'll be doing the folk art brown. And just kind of keep going back and forth until I get it to the point that I like it. And there's really, you just do it to your liking. I personally was just wanting a certain look. Kind of hard for me to explain. Just kind of going back and forth. And I did this pretty much until I found the look that I wanted. I knew I wanted, multiple layers on there. And I do go over all these. I don't show you when I'm all done with a couple coats of Dixie Belle Clear Coat. When I'm all done, even though the wax does seal it, you really kind of don't have to do that. But I did do that. So anyway, I let those dry. And now I'm back. Going to attach the tops to this, and I'm using my Maximum Strength Gorilla Glue clear, and then I'm taking a few dots of my Gorilla Super Glue, just a few little dots. It's a gel, and I'm just kind of making sure that it's on there. And then I always put these upside down. I don't just put it on top because you can't really tell where the middle is. And I'm just kind of taking any extra glue off with my wipe. And these are all oxidized, by the way. I didn't really show you, but they're already done. And I go after this is all done, and I actually spray the bottom part, the copper part, with just some clear acrylic spray. And the reason I use spray is I did this one time. And I used like a clear coat with my brush, and it just really messed up the patina. So I just feel like if you spray it with just a clear flat coat, you have less chance of messing up your patina on the copper. Now I used my Dixie Belle Clear Coat on the wood part on top, with a brush, but then I sprayed. When it was all done and dry, I just kind of went over the bottom. And I guess the top too a little, really. And I just used a clear flat coat. So that is how it looks when it's done. So I think they turned out great. I can see using these in a lot of different decor. And I hope this answers the question to people that wanted to know if you needed to use tin. And you can see by adding that salt wash on there that it really gives it a texture. I think it really makes it look, I don't know, very different and very kind of chunky and old. And you can see by putting those beads in between those two little thin pieces of wood, it gives it some substance and some interest. So you have these cute little risers. I love how these look. And there's a lot of things you could really use these for. So now we're going to move on to our last project, project number 3, and this is similar. So this is one of those Dollar Tree candle holders that you can get. You can see them a lot of times in the silver and the gold. Whenever I see them, I pick them up because there's just so many things you can use them for. And I'm going to be, I did spray those with my Krylon clear flat coat, like before I ever did anything to them. But I'm also going to go ahead and do some salt wash, and I'm going to use my coffee bean, my Dixie Belle coffee bean, and salt wash, and I'm going to put 2 coats of the salt wash and the coffee bean on there. Now that's after I put the clear coat on there, because those are really made out of a glass, so they're very slick. So you want to have something on there. And I put 1 coat on and let it dry, and then I put another coat. And it's really just a very light coat, because there's my first coat that I always do. I just want to get something on there for the paint to stick to. But I really think it's important on this when you use the metal. Well, it depends on what you're doing. But I think it really looks good when you use some sort of texture on there, because it grabs on, and I think it makes it look more like metal when you're done. So I'm going to be painting this whole thing with 1 coat. And really the second coat isn't really a full coat. It's kind of a, just kind of a touch-up anywhere I missed. And I'm kind of dabbing it on there. I'm not really painting it. When you do your salt wash, that's kind of how you have to do it. Otherwise, you'll be wiping it off unless you do it that way. And after that's all dry, I'm going to be taking the copper patina again. And I'm doing them all this way because I'm kind of making them, these things match, but not, obviously not be exactly the same. And I did the coffee bean because I think it's a really good base color for this. I think when you do it with a base coat of another color, I think it really brings out the copper or the bronze. Now, I've seen people use kind of a red or orange on the copper, and I could definitely see that working. But I've pretty much used the brown or brownish color like I did with the chocolate. And I was just trying that out. But I had the coffee bean out, so I just used it. And after it dried, I gave it a clear coat of Dixie Belle. And now I'm just doing the same thing I did with the others. And I didn't take that label off because we're going to actually be gluing something to that. And of course, I'm going to let it get patinaed. And now I have this little bowl. And I've kind of had this in my stash for a long time. And I'm putting a little oil on it because it looks really, really dried out. In fact, it's even cracked in a couple spots. But I'm still going to use it because I'm just really going to be using this as a riser. And I'm just putting some oil on there just to kind of put some life back into it. It already has a dark color on it, so I'm not going to be putting the brown on like I did with the others. I wanted to kind of just, bring the color back into it, though, because it was really, really dry. I'm just going over the whole thing and letting it soak in. And I'm just actually using my vitamin E oil to go over the whole thing. I'm not using it for food, so I'm not concerned about it being food safe. And then after I do that, I'm going to let it dry for a while, and then we will move on to the next step because we're waiting for our other piece for the patina to start happening. So now that we have that done, we're going to just go ahead and be gluing the bowl to basically the bottom. I'm actually going to be doing it to the bottom. But what I am doing is I'm taking a little bit of my copper and I'm going over this little piece a little bit because sometimes you can have a little bit too much patina and not very much of the copper will show through. And I go in and I kind of touch that up just to add a little extra, copper to it. And now I'm taking my Gorilla Glue, the maximum strength, and I'm putting that all over the bottom. I'm making sure I cover it really well. And this is it's construction adhesive, so it's made for wood and glass and everything. So, and then I'm taking just a few drops of the super glue, because that'll make it dry pretty quick. And I'm going to put that on there, and I kind of made a mistake. I should have done it upside down, because then you can really tell if it's in the middle more. And I'm pressing down really well. And of course I'm going to wipe off any extra glue, and that will be it takes about an hour, I think, to get to the point where you can really handle it. And so after about an hour, I mess with it again, let it dry. And I was going to leave this just the color, after I put the oil on it. But I kind of looked at it with the others, and it just looked kind of out of place. So I went ahead and put some white wax on it and the gray wax. I don't think I put any brown on it. Just to kind of make it blend in a little bit more with the other pieces, so they all look kind of cohesive. I didn't want them necessarily to match, but if I use them like all in one vignette, I wanted them to look similar. And I mean, I think it looked similar enough. You didn't really have to do all this, but anyway, and the wax does seal it. And again, when I'm done with this whole project, I do spray the copper part, because, like I said, I did and actually it was stuff that I did that I actually didn't film, but I tried to paint on a clear coat, and it just kind of really messed up my patina, so I learned my lesson from there. And I do seal it, but I spray it. So, anyway, I spray all this when I'm all done. But this just gives it a similar look to the other pieces. And of course, you can do it however you want to do it. So, and I do add some of the gray. It just gives it kind of an older look. And I really love how this turned out. And that's just a glass little Dollar Tree thing. So I hope that answers the question about glass, like I said. So here we go, guys. This is everything. And I really appreciate you joining me. And I hope I'll see you again soon. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, like, share, comment. I love to hear from you. And I will see you again soon. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.